Hi, everybody. I'm here today with Will Compton of Intelassist. And Will and I go back quite a few years, but Will goes back even further with camps and the camps community. And we'll talk about that a little bit. But today, Will Compton is with a company, Intelassist, and he transitioned from a previous role working with the camps community into this new business that we're very excited to tell you about. So, Will, I want to thank you for coming on today. And I think we have a lot to share that's of value because of the workforce issues that are facing manufacturers today. And you have a very unique and powerful solution to this workforce problem. So, Will, thank you for joining me.
Well, Kurt, it's my honor and good morning, and thank you for the time today. And yeah, I look forward to sharing a little bit about our model and then also how we may be able to bring some value to the membership, Kurt. Thank you.
That's fantastic. Well, Will, just to let people know that you are a trusted friend of camps. We were just discussing about a decade of relationship when camps came to Capital Benefit Services to put the health trust in place. You were in a leadership role and started from the very beginning, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, Kurt. Yeah, what a fun road that was to success, to getting the health trusts launched. To your point, Kurt, that was almost 7 or so years ago, and then the previous several working to get that established. And again, with the ultimate goal of bringing value to the members, and it looks like it's done just that and has been successful, and I'm sure will continue to be in the future as well.
You know, you were instrumental, I think, in again bringing what has saved companies, hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in the big picture by being able to provide health benefits, health benefits to their employees. And we've heard from so many employers who said, I didn't think I could afford it, and this made it possible for me to provide these kind of benefits. But it's helping manufacturers retain their talent, instead of having to leave because they didn't have health benefits. But now you've transitioned into this new role with Intelassist that now can add value to the manufacturers with their workforce issues. And I'm really excited to talk about this. So why don't you tell us about Intelassist and what you do?
Sure, I'd be honored, Kurt. Thank you. So yeah, Intelassist is an offshore staffing model that was founded in 2007, Kurt. So you can tell we've got a bit of years under our belt of experience here, going into our 16th year. And to elaborate a little bit more about what that means, Kurt, we help companies set up remote teams of employees in an offshore basis. So in this case, this would be the Philippines. So we have 1,000+ team members serving primarily US customers in a variety of disciplines, Kurt. And again, the idea being to supplement and backfill certain roles that our current situation here from an overall employment standpoint is not able to do, Kurt.
Yeah, that's to me, that's part of the exciting part. I think that there's been a lot of talk about offshore teams. Sometimes you see the very big companies doing it, but it's not something that was easily accessible, I think, to small and mid-sized type companies. So in my conversations with you and my research about Intelassist, I'm really impressed from top to bottom. So we have a lot to talk about. I mean, these are very highly trained teams. These are very professional people that you have on board.
Yeah, Kurt, I think that's really where we've cut our teeth over the past, decade, is really upscaling the skill set. So to your point, to elaborate a bit further, if you're looking for really great employees, our idea here is, you're not really confined to your own backyard anymore. There is an unbelievable talent pool of globally highly experienced, efficient individuals. But the trick is always, how do you make that work for your business? If you're in a firm of 10 employees or 1,000, really bridging that gap is difficult from a cultural standpoint, from a connectivity standpoint, from a productivity standpoint. And that's really where we've specialized, Kurt, is helping those businesses bridge that gap, find the talent pool that best fits their needs, and then ensuring that continuity of productivity to help a business scale, frankly.
I have to tell you that I've thought about this type of employment, heard about it in the past, but I thought, well, how do we bridge the cultural barriers, the language barriers, and how do we ensure the management of tasks and roles and responsibilities. And so maybe you could talk about, now I've heard nothing. I've seen some of the testimonials that you guys have, and people are raving about your service. But how does it work on a day-to-day basis for your clients?
Sure. Yeah, our basic premise is a little different than others in our industry. And let me take that a step further. So we're not meant to be an outsourcing vendor, Kirk, where you send us some roles and responsibilities to fill, and we pull someone off the bench and have them begin that support. We're a little bit more boutique in that we are filling needs based on the exact job requirements of our client. So if
Mm,
a client is looking for a very detailed position in the engineering space, let's just use as an example. They would come to our team and say, hey, Will, we need someone with 10, 12 years of experience in this specific engineering discipline. So our goal there, Kurt, is to go and recruit for that exact talent based on the specific needs of our clients. So
wow.
that adds a little bit more clarity to the role we're hiring for. And it also allows the client, or the employer in this case, to be involved in the process. Because when the smoke clears and we found the right person, this individual is meant to be a remote employee. So they're going to be connected and working every day, just like any other team member would. They just happen to be sitting remotely versus here locally. But as we've all learned through COVID, the idea of remote work is no longer meant to be scary. If it's done right, it can be done well. And that is really what our company is here to help people do, is understand that you can have a workforce on a global basis, tap into an amazing pool of talent, and then really make it seamless so that there is support and overlap back to the teams here in the US.
One of the things that I was very impressed with your answer there, that you mentioned that the company could come to you with, it could be regulatory requirements or standards, or years of experience, or they need certain degrees. How are you finding this talent? I'm really surprised that type of talent, like you mentioned, engineering, that could be a big one for manufacturers.
Yeah, that's a great segue into why we're in the Philippines in the first place. So you heard me mention a few minutes ago, our offshore team is exclusively in the Philippines. You heard me say we have 1,000+ team members. The reason why we decided to build our company there, Kurt, is just to answer your question. The talent pool is quite immense. For those who may not be familiar with that part of the world and that talent pool there's roughly 2 million Filipinos serving primarily US based companies. And that's everywhere from the Bank of Americas, the United Healthcares, the Googles of the world, all the way down to smaller companies of, let's say, 2 to 300. So that, coupled with the education system and the proficiency in the English language, is all just built this really dynamite pool of talent over there. Like you said, engineering being a great example. So when we're out recruiting for a particular skill set, we have no problem finding something very detailed or something very broad. Again, back to the idea that talent pool is so deep that we're able to really have the pick of the best over there.
Well, I was also pleasantly surprised that you mentioned this is a little bit of a recruiting model, because you're not just plugging a company into, like you said, just a generic pool of people. You're actually finding the exact person they're looking for. So it is a little bit more of a recruiting model. Is that how you see it?
Yeah, that's really the way we look at it. Again, where we want these folks to be, our team members, to be thought of as a remote employee. Thus, the involvement that we like to have with our clients and the employer. Again, if you're going to hire someone here locally, you're obviously going to meet them, interview them, make sure they're the right cultural fit. We want the same thing with our offshore team members. So we advise our clients to interview them, to meet with them, make sure that they would coalesce with their culture before anyone is brought over. And to your point, that's different than having someone on a bench, like I said before, just ready to plug and play. We have found that to not be as successful, but instead, really that ability for the employer to make the final decision amongst candidates that we would supply. We felt that to be, and found that to be, a much better fit for the longevity of the relationship and for the productivity of the team member that we ultimately hire.
Now, one of the questions that I'm certain anybody listening to this has is a little bit about, well, what does that really cost? I mean, is that about the same as if I hire somebody locally, the cost? And then I think Another question that comes in mind is what if there, I guess the time difference would be a question. And then what if there's an issue or a problem? How are those resolved?
All great questions and all very common ones we get. So let's start with the pricing. We always tell this to folks, Kirk, and I'll say this to you as well. We're really a quality play. I mean, it goes without saying that you're going to have a lower cost model with an offshore team. That is a given. But just to be very clear, we're really looking for quality people. We're not hiring the lowest cost denominator from a cost perspective. We want highly capable, experienced people. Now, to be more specific, Kurt, let's take engineering as an example. An average team member over there is going to be paying maybe 15 to 18 US dollars an hour, right? That's a kind of an average. So clearly it's substantially cheaper. But again, we're not the lowest cost denominator. There are folks that are doing it cheaper, but we believe in quality. So the costs, again, are substantially cheaper, but we're not the lowest. It's worth adding that we do, of course, cover all employee benefits, traditional HR things like taxes and recruiting. So we're trying to take that burden off of our clients as well.
Oh,
So
wow.
even at, an $18, $19 an hour rate as an example, all in, that's still, as you of course know, a substantial price decrease from what we have here. So
That's
that
rather
addresses,
amazing. Yeah.
yeah, that addresses the pricing. In regards to the regulatory issues or some of the things you addressed there, again, if these are remote employees, Kurt, the idea is they're essentially functioning within the ecosystem of our client. So they could be on their server. They could have an email that's directed to our client. Now, we're going to, of course, oversee that. The team members are in our offices. They're within our operational infrastructure. But again, it's a remote employee model where they are tapping into our client systems and functioning just like a team member would be if they were anywhere else in the world. They just happen to be sitting in our offices in the Philippines.
That's another thing that I didn't quite picture. And you said they're sitting in your offices, and I pictured them in their homes, which may or may not have good internet, but it sounds like this is something where they're on location in the Philippines.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, we have, like I mentioned before, right around 1,000 team members. We have 3 floors of a high-tech office park. Actually, we rent and sublease IBM's building in downtown Manila. So
Okay.
yes, we have a state-of-the-art facility where our folks are proud to come into. We're very conscientious of our own culture and our own ability to keep people happy and retain them. So having them on site and really taking great care of them, that's no different than what we would do with our teams here in the U.S.
Wow, that's that makes it even more impressive, really. And you mentioned that was an all-in rate as an example with the engineer and the cost that included their health benefits and taxes, and so the employer essentially is paying an all-in rate to you, and you're taking care of everything.
That is the idea. We're really trying to be in the headache removal business here, Kurt. Removing some of this traditional
Wow.
HR nightmare off of the teams here and allowing us to really burden that. But again, without sacrificing the quality of the individuals that we're then providing to their team as support.
What have your clients mentioned about the time difference, just out of curiosity?
Yeah, good question. And I didn't address that earlier. My apologies. Yeah, our team members work on the client's time zones, Kurt. So you can take that right off the board immediately. Again,
Wow.
back to the culture and the workforce in the Philippines, since there's so many folks currently working US based hours, it's really a non-issue. So again, to be clear, our folks work our clients' hours exclusively.
Wow. That makes it even more intriguing.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
you had nothing but good news here all the way around. Could we talk just a little bit about the different types of roles that you have successfully filled, so that the people listening to this would say, yeah, I have a role like that I'm trying to fill. Maybe I should talk to Will.
Sure.
What types of roles have you filled?
Sure. Well, we can really do about everything. But as you know, Kurt, from your own experience, when you try to be everything to everybody, you kind of lose what you're really great at. So we really focus on a core several verticals of the business community. The first and the obvious one with this conversation today being engineering. So we do a lot of mechanical engineering, electrical engineering, really anything within the engineering space, structural for that matter. We have numerous team members serving clients all over the US. So that is a real core pillar of our business. The second would probably be the accounting and financial space as well, Kurt.
Mm.
So that's bookkeeping, that's CPA, that's tax assistance, anything in the professional financial world. We have a very strong presence there as well. We do a fair amount in the IT and technical support roles, programmers, developers, etc. That's really the third pillar. And really the fourth is general customer care. And that can be everything from inbound to outbound calls. That can be data recording. That can be anything within an inventory system. So among those four, Kurt, we really gravitate and have tried to build our business on those four.
Well, I think that's a really well-rounded point of view. So, I mean, it almost makes it so I think manufacturers, when they think of their back-end operations or front-end operations, it's something where they could at least call and try to figure out if there is a match there.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And there has not been a skill yet we've not been able to find. But again, we're trying to stay within our sweet spot and to really make sure we're excelling in those four that I mentioned right there.
Do you mind just sharing some success stories, some of your stories from your very happy clients and what they've said to you?
I'd be happy to. Well, of course, anybody listening can always go to our website. We've got both great testimonials there and videos of our offices, interviews with some of our team members, so you can get an idea of the types of folks we're hiring, where they're positioned in our offices, etc. But then to answer your question, sure, I can give you any number of examples, but let's stay within the engineering community. And I'm sure that our friends at DDS companies would not mind me sharing their name. They're based in upstate New York. They came to us looking for some mechanical and piping engineering support. Like many people, they were originally apprehensive about the idea, wasn't quite sure how this would fit within their mold. And once they started it out, and started, I mean, by trying it with 1 to 2 engineers, they're now up to almost 20.
Oh, wow.
So you can see that once they, most clients get the idea that, hey, this does work, we figured out how to make this work within our system, then we're able to put together really strong teams of folks that are, again, reporting to our client directly. So there's one example. We have similar examples in the architectural space. We also work with much larger clients. As an example, Electrolux, which is the Frigidaire brand, Kurt, right? So we do a lot of their back office warranty support. So if you're an end consumer and you're, for whatever reason, having a challenge with your appliance, you call in for technical support. That's our team. And an example there being, Kurt, we started with a smaller team of around 20, and now we're up into the hundreds supporting them. So those are two brief examples. We also work with much smaller firms of 1 to 2 folks that are really just looking for an additional team member to come in there and take some burden off their principals. And that is great as well. Again, we've found a lot of success helping smaller employers, not just the bigger guys I was alluding to just then.
I'll also have to mention, well, when I worked with you at Capital Benefits, we talked about that earlier. Capital Benefits, under your leadership, really made it easy. You took all the hard stuff away from what we had to do. But now I'm hearing the same thing with Intelassist. You're making this headache free. You're taking away the difficult parts of this, and it sounds like a phone call to you could solve a lot of workforce challenges.
Well, and that's the idea. Our goal is to really, like I said before, make this a headache removal idea and to really supplement someone, Kirk. And I'll kind of double back on that word supplement. Our goal, like I just said, is to take the burden off the current teams here in the US. So it's, most of our clients have found working with us successful in either A, they simply cannot find someone to fill an open position, or B, we're there to supplement and take work off their current team. And really, I think once folks work with us, they realize that supplemental back office support pays dividends to free up some of their key team members here locally to go do other projects or other strategic business initiatives that they may not be able to do because of the lack of time in the day. So again, are we the answer for everybody? Of course not. But we have really been very proud to help numerous manufacturers and others, not just here in the Pacific Northwest, but also across the country.
I think this is a very powerful way to think about what you're doing, because as I've talked to manufacturers and they've added automation, robotics, and they've done things to, like you mentioned, to offload their current staff, those were very positive moves, and they weren't replacing, staff. They were, like you said, it was enhancing, it was allowing them to focus on higher value tasks. So this could be a real enhancement, I think, to the manufacturing companies here in Washington State.
Yeah, and just to really triple down on what you just said, we're not a replacement model, Kurt, right? We are a supplemental model. Again, we're hiring people that will be remote team members to plug in and become an integral part of our clients' teams. And I'm really glad you said that, because it's not our intention at all. We're really here to help businesses perform at a higher octane with a highly skilled but lower cost option that allows their team to only grow.
Well, that's, it's very positive. I think about the difference that it makes, for the US, companies and their people, their lives, and what they can focus on and get done. So, increasing productivity, but at the same time, how it must, influence and improve the lives of the people in the Philippines. I mean, that's a lot of good news.
That's absolutely true. I mean, as you can imagine, when we're employing 1,000+ people, we of course care immensely. We do a lot of charitable work there. We sponsor orphanages, et cetera. That's something that we feel strongly in. And to your point, of course, we're very proud of what we do. And going back to a comment I made earlier, Kurt, that's why we're not the lowest cost option out there. We really do try to pay our folks well. We want them to be happy to come onto our team and feel like they're part of our family. So again, we're trying to take care of our folks just like we would here with our team members here in the U.S.
Well, Will, this has been a fantastic opportunity to get to hear a new workforce solution for manufacturers that I think a lot of people will be thrilled about. How do they get a hold of you? What is your website? How do they contact you?
Yeah, thanks, Gary. So to keep it simple, Intelassist.com, right? You can obviously check out our website. We think it's fairly informative. You'll get a better idea of who we are. Like I said before, you can take a look at some videos, some office space, et cetera, some client testimonials. Always welcome to go to the website. Kurt, people can reach out to me directly. I'm a proud CAMPS member, so I'll be around at events locally, but also, of course, available anytime to meet virtually. My email is just my name, willcompton@Intelassist.com. And again, I'd be happy to speak with anybody and see if we're the right fit.
Well, that's excellent. Thank you for your time today. And I'm really excited to share, what you've got in store for us. Thank you.
Excellent. Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you so much, Kurt.